Hello everybody, welcome to Lengthen and Strengthen. This is my most popular class in person. I'm really happy to bring it to you here on YouTube now that I've got a nice mic set up. So the format of the class, we're gonna go from a flexibility exercise, very intense deep stretches, to a body weight strength exercises. Today we're working on forward folding and handstands. Can't wait to get started with you. So we're gonna start with walkouts. So let's stand with the feet close together. We're gonna be reaching up and back, stretching the front of the body. Bring the hands down to the floor and walk out to a push-up position. From here, drop the hips and look up. Again, stretching the front of the body. And then you're going to walk the hands back to the feet. That's 1 rep. We're just continuing for 1 minute. Today's workout is gonna move from 1 minute of work, 20 seconds of rest, alternating between a flexibility exercise and a strength exercise. We're just starting with a nice warm up to get the body ready for what we're working on today. So forward folding and beginner hand balancing. We're gonna do some crow pose and a little bit of gorilla hops. Just get used to having some weight in the hands. So we've got a pretty good warm up, focusing on wrists, feet, hips. To make sure we're nice and ready. On this rep here, we're gonna take the left foot, bring it right between the hands for a sprinter stretch. So for the sprinter stretch here, we're gonna shift the hips forward and down, looking up, stretching the right hip flexor. Then we're gonna switch back into a hamstring stretch, lengthening the left leg, forward and backward. Like so. If you can't reach the floor on this hamstring stretch, that's fine. Just come up nice and high like so. Get as straight as you can with the leg and focusing on pulling the left hip back into the socket. We're gonna transition right away, get the right hand on the floor to a world's greatest stretch, reaching up to the sky. Bring that left hand under the other arm, trying to bring the back of the shoulder down to the floor, getting a nice rotation in the spine. Really try and keep the back leg straight so that most of the rotation is coming through the spine, not as much through the hips. Getting the hips ready for what we're doing today. And go ahead and switch your feet. So right leg's gonna be in front. We're just doing those same 2 motions, sprinter stretch and world's greatest. Let's get going. Shifting forward and back up. So I've got a timer running. If you do transition quicker than the 20 seconds given on the screen, feel free to start early, get a little bit more work in. Though for some of the strength exercises, you may want to wait and only do the minute. For the stretches, just dive right in and get moving. Or staying still, I guess, not moving. Let's go ahead and plant the left hand, rotate up, try and get that right arm under the left, bringing the back of the shoulder down to the floor as we rotate through the spine. You may notice yourself getting a little out of breath here. That's great. Just the body getting warm. This feels both nice and challenging at the same time, as a good warm-up should. There we go. All right. Moving on, we're gonna get the wrists warmed up. Moving into some wrist rocks. Let's take the fingertips, point them back at the knees. We're just gonna rock back and forth, just stretching out the fronts of the wrists. Feeling a nice mild stretch here. Just about 30 seconds of this. Try to get all your fingers flat on the floor if you can. And keep the heel of the hand on the floor. And we're gonna go ahead and just flip the hands over We'll work on the backs of the wrists. Just rocking back and forth as we go. It's a great stretch if you work at a computer, you're on a keyboard a lot, using the mouse a lot, or if you're like me, play a lot of video games. This is definitely gonna get the wrist loose. All right, moving on. We're gonna load and unload the wrists. We're working on just getting as much weight into the hands as we can as we warm up. At any point, if your wrists are bothering you, just shake them out like you've got water on them. So on the knees here, we're just loading and unloading the hands. If you're not quite comfortable taking the legs off the floor yet, just rock back and forth like so. Get as much weight into the hands as possible. Ideally, the weight is in this part of the hand. So really grab the floor to make sure it's in the base of the fingers there. Really grab the floor like so. We're gonna do some back of the wrist push-ups. So just turn the backs of the hands down. We're just gonna bring the backs of the hands onto the floor, getting the wrists ready to put lots of weight on them with our hand balances a little bit later on in the workout. It's just up and down, putting as much weight into the wrists as you can. Awesome. All right, come to standing. We're gonna work on a little bit of balance here. We're just gonna simply stand 30 seconds on each leg, starting with the left. Lift the right leg up to hip height. Just get the feet working. We're gonna dive very shortly into our first sets of work, working on forward fold, and a bit of shoulder strengthening to start. Keep the knee about hip height. Make sure the left leg stands tall. Try not to bend it or bend back. Bring the crown of the head high to the ceiling. And let's go ahead and switch legs to the right side. Standing nice and tall. Bring the crown of the head to the ceiling. Left knee is about hip height. If you want a more advanced version, you can straighten the leg out in front, whichever you choose. Standing nice and tall. Awesome. So after each chunk, so after a warm up and each little chunk, we'll have about 45 seconds of rest before we jump back in. So our first movement that we're gonna work on here is gonna be our curled SEIZA. So we're starting with the lower leg and the shoulders. So come down to the knees. Get all of your toes curled under, especially the baby toe. Don't forget about the baby toe. And we're gonna sit with all of your weight down onto the heels. You can go ahead and start early. We're gonna be here for 1 minute. If you want, you can wait till the timer starts, but here we go. Very important to open up the bottoms of the feet. Commonly, people are tight down the entire back of the body just because all the fascia and tissue at the bottoms of the feet are all gummed up and tight. By opening them up to start, make sure that you can, I like starting with the lower leg and working your way back up the body. I find it helps to get the back of the legs loosened best and get you deeper into your forward folds. A very important part of body weight movements is the forward fold. It's kind of a basis if you want to do anything like a handstand, press handstand, planche. They all require a good amount of hamstring flexibility and strength. So we always do a lot of that in body weight training. Very nice. From here, we're gonna move into a scapula push-up. So come into a plank position, keep your palms facing the floor, make sure your elbows are stacked directly below the shoulders. We're coming into a plank, squeeze the thighs together so we have a slight tuck in the hips. And from here, we're just gonna bring the chest down to the floor and up as high as you can away from the floor. The real work for this one is trying to bring the chest far away from the floor and really rounding in the upper back so that the shoulder blades go down the side of the body and maintaining that plank position. Try not to let the bum come up and down like this. Kind of defeats the purpose of the exercise. It's better to do a smaller range of motion like so, but do them correctly, than doing a bigger range of motion with the bum up in the air and working the wrong area of the body. This works in an area called the serratus anterior. It's kind of a muscles that are layered on top of the rib cage. Very important for bringing the shoulder blade around the body and just supporting it when you've got weight in the hands. Whew, these are tough. All right, moving on now, we're gonna do an Achilles stretch, kneeling on the left leg. So bring your left leg planted on the floor. We're gonna try and bring the knee as far past the toe as you can without lifting the heel. Go ahead and use your body weight on your leg to increase the stretch. So for all of our stretches today, you want to think about using your breath to help relax the muscles. Breath is also a great guide because it's going to help you maintain good posture in your spine and make sure for a lot of these movements, especially for the forward folds, it's coming from the hip joint, not from the lower back or the upper back, although that is part of it. We want to prioritize the movement coming from the hip. So if you take a big deep breath in, fill yourself with air, you'll immediately feel your spine straighten and lengthen. And then when you exhale, you can settle into the stretch to increase it. Really lean your body weight in. You should feel this in the lower ankle. We're almost done. All right, moving on to a prone swimmer. It's hard to talk during this one, so I'll demo lying on the floor. Have the hands on the lower back, like so. You're gonna keep your forehead down on the mat. Lift the hands off of the lower back first, and you're gonna make a big circle around like a swimmer, like butterfly stroke. Reach the arms forward and come on back around, hands back on the lower back. Move over a little bit here. Hands up. Nice big circle. Keep the arms as high up off of the floor as you can. And back. When you come back to the start position, try to hover the hands off the lower back before going back to your next rep. Getting some internal rotation of the shoulder. These get really tough, especially after a minute of work. You can really feel it. We're gonna go right back to that Achilles stretch on the right hand side. So right foot planted, again keeping the heel on the floor and just bringing the knee as far past the toe as you're capable of without lifting the heel. Use your body weight on the leg to really stretch it forward. Ideally you're feeling this in the lower part of the ankle. So for all of our static stretches today, try to keep the intensity of the stretch at about a 7 to 8 out of 10. Nothing too intense. Ideally, as the stretch goes on, you'll slowly increase the intensity of the stretch without ever backing off. So if you find yourself fidgeting a lot, moving around, your mind is a little bit unsettled during it, just back off the stretch a little bit. Just make sure it's a position you can hold for a long period of time, because we are holding these stretches for a pretty long time. Finishing off with some APLEY scratch movement here. So I'm gonna take the hands, I'm gonna turn one hand down, and we're just reaching up the back, trying to touch the hands together behind the back, and then we go back to the other side. Turn my watch around here. Okay. So again, try to touch the hands together behind the back, and then switch sides. Very common to have more range of motion on one side, as you can see I've got, than the other for this. But at a minimum, you want the bottom hand to be able to touch the bottom of the opposite shoulder blade, and the top hand to touch the top half of the opposite shoulder blade. Anything less than that, I would consider to be insufficient flexibility for most of the movements in bodyweight training, as well as just general gym movements like bench press, push-ups, overhead pressing. You're gonna lead to a higher injury rate without that range of motion. So if you can't do that, that would be top priority. So that's our first chunk done. Just getting started. So far, so good. So we're gonna get into our first fold with a standing pike, and we're working on some core today with some hollow bodies. So take a stand. We're gonna stand with our feet together. We wanna be very active for this stretch. So feet together, press the knees together, and press the legs back straight. And from here, we're gonna fold forward from the hips. Think about lengthening the spine and folding down, bringing the hands to the floor. So if you're ready, we can begin. We'll wait for the timer to start. Again, nice and active in this stretch. So try not to let the bum push back. Try to keep the hips stacked directly above the heels. And as you stretch down into the stretch, think about elongating the spine and using your breath to get you deeper into the stretch. If you can reach the floor with your hands, try to pick your tailbone up to the sky, really lengthening through the back of the legs, trying to tilt the hips during the stretch. Into a half hollow body. So lying down on the back. From this position, try to keep the lower back flat to the floor, so there's no space under your lower back. Keep the feet together, press the thighs together, and you're gonna lift up off the floor, just enough to fit a piece of paper, and just get the bottoms of the shoulder blades up off the floor. We're here for quite a long time. Quite challenging. If you cannot do the whole minute, just take breaks, work your way up to it. Once you can do a minute here, start working with the hands overhead, and eventually in a full hollow, like so. Try not to lift the knees up too high. This takes the pressure off of the lower abs. Keep them nice and low. Keep the lower back nice and flat. Just got 15 more seconds here. We're almost there. Hold tight. That's a tough one. We're heading back into a forward fold, this time with a knee hug version. So feet together again. Reach down, hug the knees. So the key to this one is keeping contact between your stomach and your thighs the whole time. and you're gonna use the muscles of the legs to straighten out the legs, but without letting your stomach leave your thighs. So get as straight as you can, keep the stomach on the thighs, work on getting the legs nice and straight. Once you're pretty straightened out, start working on letting the legs hang. You'll feel a very isolated stretch in the hamstrings with this one. This one's tough. Tease your sit-ups. So lie down on the back. We're gonna go from that half hollow position, but with the arms overhead, and pull up into a teaser. It's gonna look like this. And up, trying to balance on the tailbone as we go up and down. Hold for a second in that top position. Try and stay long through the spine. And as you roll down, try not to flop down. You want to nice and slowly lower yourself into the hollow body position. Ooh, these are quite challenging. Use a bit of momentum on the way up. Balancing on the lower part of the back. Ooh. Ooh, almost there. She's burning. All right, and our last fold here, we've got a wide hurdler. So take the left leg out long and the right leg back as far as you're able to. We're gonna take the right hand and reach toward the toes. Try to get your chest facing down and really actively pressing your knee down into the floor. Try not to get lazy with it. Make sure the quad muscle stays nice and tight the whole time. That's gonna allow the back of the leg to relax. If you're like me and you're tight in the calves, pull your toes back. It's definitely my biggest area of opportunity is in the calves. If your calves aren't that tight, maybe point the toe. That might help as well. Final core movement is L-sit raises. There's two ways you can do this. Key to this, so sitting long, make sure the weight is off of the tailbone, leaning forward. If you can't get weight off the tailbone, just sit on something so that you're leaned forward. From here, you're gonna lift. Level one is lifting one leg at a time. Try to make sure your hands are in line or in front of your knees and your body is leaned forward. If you can't quite lean forward yet, just make sure wherever you're starting from, you're not leaning backward as you lift. We're leaning forward. If you want more of a challenge, you could try lifting both at the same time. But for today, we're doing one at a time. Try to stay leaned forward. You're gonna feel this in the hip flexor and quad muscles, as well as the abs as you lift up and down. Really lean forward. Again, the further forward you lean, the harder the motion. All right, grand finale, our final folding. We're gonna kick off the next round. Grab some water if you need to, but we're kicking off with that same hurdler stretch on the right side. So pull the left leg back nice and long. As far back as you're able to open. Right leg will be nice and straight. Reaching for the toes. Again, pressing the knee into the floor the whole time. Try to get as little of a space between your floor and the knee as possible. And again, if you're tight like me, go ahead and pull back to get a little extra calf stretch here. Let's settle in. Remember to use your breath to get as deep into this stretch as you can. Okay, we're moving into a pike to plank. So set up for as if you're gonna do a push-up and walk your feet forward just a touch so that your shoulders are actually in front of your hands. So from here, press with the arms, push the tailbone high into the sky, go up onto the tiptoes before returning to the start position. So we're trying to get as flat in the back as possible and way high up on the tiptoes. Starting to feel what it's like to put weight into the hands and balance on the hands. If you want to make these harder, just walk the feet a little bit closer. Eventually with these, we want to be able to pick the feet right up off the floor. Not quite there yet, but we'll get there. All right, we've got a nice seated pike. Both legs out in front. Make sure you're sitting again on the sit bones and not on the tailbone. Curl the toes back, sit nice and tall, and reach the chest forward. So try not to round down. You want to reach the chest long and in front of the knees for this forward fold. Try to get as flat in the back as you can, actively pressing the thighs into the floor. Keep those quads tight. All right, we're gonna move into our first actual hand balance, which is a crow pose. So 2 levels of this. Level 1 is to take the elbows on the insides of the knees and balance like so. If you can't quite lift the feet off the ground yet, just go back and forth like so. But ideally, you're able to fully balance. Full crow is to have the elbows higher up on the tops of the arms, up by the triceps, and balance like so. It's a great one because it teaches you, especially once we're up in a handstand, how to balance your weight. So if you start falling forward, press the fingers into the floor, and that'll help you get your balance. And if you're falling backward, you're just gonna bend the elbows a little bit more. So just play with it, have some fun, work with whatever level you're at, and find the balance. All right, shake that out. Final forward fold is just gonna be what we started with a standing pike. So feet together, legs together. You get to notice the difference here. And fold forward. If you weren't able to before, you might be able to touch the ground now. For me, I'm now able to get my hands flat. When we started, I could only get back of the hands. It's fun to see the body open up with this flexibility stuff. Best thing about flexibility is that just consistency, and you get there. Everybody progresses at different levels. Some people are a little bit more prone to gain flexibility than others, but anybody can get flexible. Just takes some consistency. There's lots of different ways to do flexibility as well. I like to go the daily route. It's a little bit a day, every day, 20 to 30 minutes, just a little bit, spread the intensity out. But you can totally do a 1-hour session twice a week, just like you would a strength training regimen, to get nice and flexible. Let's really push it for these last 10 seconds. See what you can do. Whew. And we're gonna finish with some gorilla hops. This is great for getting used to feeling some dynamic hand balancing. We're gonna stand in a squat position like so, and we're just gonna hop on the hands through kind of a bent leg handstand, trying to find a little bit of balance in the middle as you go side to side. Maybe slow your fall down. If you're new to it, it's totally fine to just go like so, side to side, nice and quick. Just get some of your weight in the hands. If you're more advanced, maybe hang out at the top of it in kind of a bent handstand there. Or again, just hopping side to side, getting some weight in the hands, like so. Play with it, have some fun. That's my other favorite thing about all this body weight training. So it makes me feel like a kid again. Just jumping around, trying to balance on my hands, seeing somebody do something and trying to figure out, how can I do it? Thanks so much for joining me.